The following weeks of Clora's training in Alfheim were unlike anything she had ever experienced. Each day was dedicated to a new aspect of the elves' mystical artifacts, legendary creatures, and powerful relics that had shaped their ancient society and safeguarded their realm across millennia. The first section of her training focused on artifacts, each relic bearing immense historical significance and mystical properties. In the Hall of Artifacts, the curator, an ancient elf named Solvar, introduced her to several items steeped in legend. "This," Solvar said, pointing to a crystalline sphere pulsing with a gentle blue light, "is the Orb of Ithran. It was used in the War of the Shattered Sky to detect lies, exposing even the smallest deception. In the hands of a trusted leader, it could prevent betrayal, keeping armies united." Clora listened intently, sensing the weight of history in each artifact. The Orb of Ithran radiated a quiet, calming aura, but she also noticed how it seemed to grow warmer as Solvar spoke to her. The other elves observed this with silent interest, noting how the orb resonated with her presence, a sign it deemed her spirit strong and trustworthy. Moving on, Solvar presented a gleaming silver chalice known as the Grail of Restoration, capable of healing even the gravest injuries. To wield it requires purity of heart and purpose. Only those without malice in their souls can unlock its full power, Solvar explained. Clora ran her fingers along the rim of the chalice, feeling a surge of warmth pass through her hands as if the relic sensed her intentions. Her evenings were spent in quiet reflection with Aeliana, as Clora recounted the day's discoveries. "Every artifact tells a story, doesn't it?" she asked, her voice hushed in wonder. "It's like each one is a living memory." Aeliana nodded, her eyes glimmering with pride. "You understand, Clora. These artifacts guard history, and it takes someone with respect for that history to use them wisely. This is why you're here, why we believe in you." The second part of her training revolved around creatures, beasts of legend and myth that lived harmoniously with the elves. Clora was introduced to creatures she had only read about in ancient texts: moonlit deer whose antlers glowed with stardust, sea serpents that slumbered in enchanted pools, and even shadow-fanged hounds, guardians of the elven borders. One day the instructors brought in a creature unlike any she had seen, a colossal horned serpent whose scales shimmered like polished obsidian. Its gaze was fierce yet calculating, and it coiled itself tightly, observing Clora. She felt the serpent's intense stare as though it was testing her resolve. After a few moments of silent assessment, she reached out cautiously, keeping her hand steady and respectful. The serpent's head dipped slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. By the end of her encounter, Clora had earned the trust of yet another formidable creature, leaving the onlooking elves in awe. However, there was one creature she hadn't yet introduced to the group, her own spirit animal, Omega. The elves knew of dire wolves, of course, but the idea of introducing a creature tied so closely to her own spirit felt deeply personal. Yet, with each passing day, she felt the importance of acknowledging Omega's place in her journey, not just as her companion, but as an essential part of her connection to the pack. Clora wrestled with the idea of introducing Omega to her fellow trainees, often bringing it up in her evening talks with Aeliana. "He's the last of his kind, the son of Alpha, the pack's greatest protector. I want them to understand, but it's deeply personal." Aeliana offered a gentle smile. "True bonds are powerful, Clora, and Omega's lineage is significant, especially here. He embodies not only your connection to the pack, but your role as the female alpha. Sharing him would honor his legacy and help others see the depths of your bond." The next day, as she stood before her fellow trainees and instructors, Clora took a deep breath. "There is one creature you haven't yet met, someone who has been my companion through every challenge." She raised a hand, signaling for Omega, who bounded into the courtyard, his silver-tipped fur catching the light and his eyes a bright, intelligent gold. The trainees were silent, struck by Omega's presence. Some stepped back instinctively, sensing the power radiating from him, while others stared in awe at the last of the dire wolves. "This is Omega," Clora said proudly, her voice filled with warmth. "He is the son of Alpha, the last of the dire wolves, and my spirit bond." She knelt beside him, running her hand through his fur as she continued. "Our connection is more than just companionship. Through him I feel the instincts of the pack, and he feels mine. In battle, we move as one. In peace, we share each other's calm." Omega's gaze swept over the crowd, then he sat beside Clora, as if to reassure them that he was both guardian and ally. The elves murmured in approval, and Clora knew she had made the right choice. Omega's presence solidified her respect among her peers, showing them that the pack's strength and honor went beyond mere words. Following her introduction of Omega, Clora was invited to demonstrate their combat synergy. A field was set up with obstacles, and she and Omega faced off against instructors posing as enemies. Clora didn't need words. With just a glance or a hand signal, Omega moved in perfect coordination with her. They dodged, countered, and defended each other seamlessly, flowing through the field like a single entity. At one point, an instructor aimed a heavy blow at Clora, only to be intercepted by Omega, who leapt in with a protective snarl. The elves watching had never seen such a bond between warrior and spirit. Afterward, the commander approached her, his expression one of deep respect. "You are unlike any warrior we've trained, Clora. This bond you share with Omega, it is as ancient as our own traditions." The weeks that followed were filled with lessons on elven artifacts, creatures, and her continued bonding with Omega. She emerged from each day more connected to the mystic forces of Alfheim, understanding more about the realms, herself, and the bond that made her not just a warrior, but an alpha worthy of her title. By the end of her training, Clora felt a profound shift within herself. She was no longer simply a student. She was a warrior of Alfheim, the female alpha of the pack, with the respect and admiration of those who had once questioned her place among them. The golden light of morning cast a warm glow over the ancient garrison courtyard as Clora stood with the other trainees, awaiting their next assignment. The week's trials had left its mark on each of them, and they bore the weight of their resilience, in silence, each trainee a little stronger, a little sharper. At the front of the courtyard, 3 pairs of sandals lay on a shelf, a silent reminder of those who had fallen short. The garrison commander surveyed the line of remaining trainees, his gaze sharp and unyielding. There was no room for complacency here, no praise that wasn't earned. When he finally spoke, his voice rang clear, a tone tempered by both respect and authority. "Congratulations to those who have endured," he began, pausing to let the words settle. "You've proven yourselves through physical and mental challenges, and yet, the hardest part remains. Today, you begin a new phase. Each of you will be assigned to a military unit as a private. For 1 week, you will serve with the rank of the lowest soldier. You will follow orders without question, work alongside battle-hardened warriors, and understand firsthand what it means to serve from the bottom up." Clora stood taller, accepting the challenge with a steady gaze, while a few nearby elves exchanged uneasy glances. Some even muttered under their breath, feeling their pride bruised at the thought of being treated as common privates. But the commander's eyes flicked in their direction, silencing them with a look of steely resolve. "I will have no complaints," he warned, his tone icy. "To lead, one must first understand service. Today, your rank, lineage, and status are irrelevant. You will be soldiers, nothing more. Do you understand?" A chorus of respectful affirmations followed, with Clora's voice ringing steady among them. When her assignment was announced, Clora felt a thrill of both anticipation and trepidation. She and Omega were to serve in the Moonshield Regiment, an elite border patrol unit known for their expertise in defending Alfheim's boundaries. As she saluted the commander and left to meet her assigned unit, she felt a stirring of pride mixed with humility, prepared to face whatever this new trial demanded of her. As Clora and Omega entered the encampment of the Moonshield Regiment, an air of quiet suspicion greeted them. The camp was bustling, with elves sharpening weapons, adjusting armor, and inspecting their mounts for the upcoming patrol. Whispers accompanied her every step as soldiers took note of her human presence, and Omega's imposing figure beside her. A tall, silver-haired elf with battle-worn armor approached, his gaze appraising. This was Captain Erendor, the unit's respected leader. He looked her over before settling his gaze on Omega, then back to Clora. "You are the human alpha we've heard about," he said, his tone both welcoming and wary. "Know that here, you are Private Faelan, and you'll answer to Sergeant Valen. Follow orders, do your duty, and you'll do well with us." Clora met his gaze with a respectful nod. "Understood, Captain. I'm here to learn." With that, she was directed to Sergeant Valen, a gruff elf with a scar tracing down his cheek, marking him as a seasoned fighter. He regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism before handing her a heavy sack filled with supplies for field repairs. "Start by organizing the field tents and assisting with equipment checks," he ordered, as if testing her willingness to serve in this menial role. Clora hoisted the bag over her shoulder without complaint, her expression calm as she set to work. Omega padded alongside her, drawing curious glances from the other soldiers, who seemed to appreciate the strange bond between the human warrior and her spirit animal. As she moved through the camp, completing her duties, a few elves approached her, some out of curiosity, others with open skepticism. "You carry yourself with pride, but are you truly ready to serve?" one elf asked, her tone edged with doubt. Clora met the elf's gaze squarely. "A true warrior learns humility before glory." The words seemed to strike a chord, and a few of the younger elves nodded in approval. The hardened members of the unit watched from afar, withholding judgment. As the first day wore on, Clora moved from one task to the next, each assignment as demanding as it was humble. She fetched supplies, repaired gear, and assisted with mount inspections, her every action a testament to her quiet resolve. Omega assisted in his own way, carrying small supplies in his jaws and calming the regiment's mounts with a gentle nuzzle. By the second day, word had spread about her unwavering diligence, and some soldiers began to warm to her. During breaks, they asked her about her life, her bond with Omega, and what it meant to be a human alpha. She shared her story, explaining the sacred bond between human and spirit animal within her pack, and the legacy of loyalty they upheld. Bit by bit, her humility and dedication softened the regiment's stance toward her, respect growing in the hearts of those who had once doubted her. Halfway through the week, the regiment received word that a band of trolls and shadow creatures had breached Alfheim's border. The regiment sprang into action, and Clora was assigned to the rear of the formation, a lowly position, but one she accepted without question. As they approached the border, the darkened skies and ominous silence cast a sense of foreboding over the regiment. Suddenly the creatures lunged from the shadows, their twisted forms bellowing with rage. The regiment formed a tight defensive line, and the battle began. Despite her rear position, Clora stayed alert, eyes scanning for any threats that might breach the line. During the skirmish, a young elven soldier nearby was thrown to the ground, stunned by a troll's brutal swipe. Seeing the danger, Clora darted forward, her staff already glowing with a blinding light. She swung the staff in a wide arc, casting a temporary shield around them, forcing the troll back. Her quick actions gave her enough time to pull the young elf to safety, though it left her momentarily vulnerable. One of the shadow creatures lunged toward her, its claws outstretched, but Omega sprang into action, intercepting the attack. Together, Clora and Omega stood their ground, fending off the creature's relentless assault, until reinforcements arrived to drive it back. After the battle, Sergeant Valen approached her. His gruff demeanor softened. "You risked your life to save one of our own, even at your rank," he said, nodding in approval. "That takes courage and loyalty." Clora inclined her head, a humble smile touching her lips. "Loyalty transcends rank, Sergeant." With her actions, Clora had proven herself not just as a private, but as a warrior with a true heart. The elves of the Moonshield Regiment now regarded her not as an outsider, but as one of their own, united by shared courage and mutual respect. In the days that followed, Clora's efforts didn't go unnoticed. The respect she had earned allowed her to fight alongside her fellow soldiers as an equal, her actions in the field mirroring the strength of the pack. Her bond with Omega proved invaluable, the dire wolf's instincts and strength complementing her own. Side by side, they guarded the border, embodying the spirit of both pack and regiment. By the end of the week, the unit gathered one last time around the campfire, sharing tales of battles past and battles yet to come. Clora listened, absorbing their stories, and when they turned to her for one of her own, she told them of her training under Gunner, of her battles alongside Echo Division, and of the legacy of her pack. Her story was met with nods of approval and murmurs of respect. As dawn approached on the final day, Captain Erendor addressed her with a formal nod. "You came to us as an outsider, Clora Faelan, but today you leave as one of us. May the strength you've shown here guide you in all the battles yet to come." Clora's heart swelled with pride as she saluted him, her journey with the Moonshield Regiment now a part of her own legacy. She and Omega departed the camp that morning, their bond strengthened, their spirits unbreakable, ready for whatever the next chapter held. The sun had just begun to rise, casting its soft morning glow over the garrison as Clora joined the other trainees in the courtyard. Beside her, a row of 6 sets of sandals rested silently on the shelf, a reminder of those who had either failed, fallen, or chosen to abandon their journey. The weight of those sacrifices hung in the air, a quiet tribute to the path they had all chosen. One by one, each trainee was called into the commander's office. They exited with various expressions, some relieved, some determined, and a few with downcast faces. Clora waited patiently, feeling Omega's steady presence beside her. When her name was called, she straightened, giving Omega a reassuring pat before entering the commander's chamber. The room was simple yet powerful in its decor. A tapestry depicting past battles hung on the far wall, and the commander sat behind a sturdy wooden desk, his sharp eyes studying her with a look of approval. "Private Faelan," he greeted, gesturing for her to sit. "You've done well. Your time with the Moonshield Regiment has shown your resilience, humility, and willingness to learn. I've heard nothing but praise for your dedication, and more importantly, your bravery." Clora inclined her head, a touch of pride and humility colouring her expression. "Thank you, Commander. It was an honour to serve." The commander nodded, his gaze steady. "You didn't merely serve, Clora. You went above and beyond, risking yourself to save a comrade. Your actions were noted not just by Sergeant Valen, but by the entire regiment. It's not every day that we see a human earn such respect among our ranks." He leaned back, a small smile breaking his otherwise stern demeanour. "As such, I am promoting you to the role of sergeant for your next assignment. You will serve in a new unit, the Silverleaf Company, as a leader among the troops." Clora's eyes widened slightly, her mind racing with both excitement and responsibility. "I will serve to the best of my ability, sir." The commander rose and moved to a side cabinet, where he retrieved a set of combat gear. The armour was lighter than the human gear she was used to, yet she could sense the strength and flexibility it offered. The sleek metal gleamed with faint etchings of elven runes, and she recognized them as symbols of protection and courage. Beside the armor, there was an insignia bearing the rank of sergeant, which he placed on the desk. "This gear is issued to those who have proven their commitment to our ways," he said, his tone respectful. "Wear it with pride. The elves of Silverleaf Company will be looking to you as an example. Lead them well." Clora accepted the armor with reverence, her fingers tracing the elegant yet durable design. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders, yet she felt ready, more than she ever had before. She knew this wasn't just about rank, it was about the respect she'd earned and the trust she now carried. "Thank you, Commander," she replied, her voice steady. "I won't let you down." The commander's gaze softened as he regarded her. "I don't doubt it." Dismissed. Clora left the commander's office and returned to her quarters to don her new armor. Each piece felt like a rite of passage, a tangible reminder of the journey she'd undertaken. Omega watched her with calm, perceptive eyes, as if sensing the significance of this moment. Once fully equipped, Clora adjusted the sergeant's insignia on her chest, feeling the weight and pride of her new role. She caught her reflection in a nearby mirror, a warrior, a leader, and the first human to ever stand as an equal among the elves. When she stepped back outside, her fellow trainees took note, many nodding in respect, while a few offered subdued congratulations. Clora's journey was far from over, but this step felt monumental. She had earned her place not just among the trainees, but among the ranks of Alfheim's defenders. Omega padded at her side, a loyal shadow as she moved through the garrison. Her orders were clear: report to the Silverleaf Company, where she would spend the next week learning, leading, and proving herself as a true sergeant. The path ahead was unknown, but Clora welcomed it, her heart and spirit stronger than ever. Clora arrived at the encampment of Silverleaf Company, a respected and storied regiment tasked with patrolling Alfheim's more volatile borders. Though the elves offered polite nods, she could feel the skepticism in their glances. She was still an outsider, a human, and they had yet to see her worth. Only her armor and the sergeant's insignia indicated she belonged, yet they seemed to silently question how long that would last. Her commanding officer, Captain Aeliana, was a formidable elf, with a keen, observant gaze that didn't miss much. He sized her up in an instant, acknowledging her rank with a nod, but not offering any favours. "Sergeant Faelan, welcome to Silverleaf," he said formally. "The company expects that you'll hold your own. We don't have time for hand-holding. Understood?" Clora met his gaze steadily. "Understood, sir." Captain Aeliana's expression softened just a touch, impressed by her straightforwardness. "Good, then. Let's get to work." It wasn't long before Clora was assigned her first task, a routine border patrol with a squad of Silverleaf soldiers. They would sweep the area, ensuring no breaches had been made by rogue creatures or scouts from darker realms. Clora fell in line beside the others, noting the way they moved with a practiced ease and precision that only came from years of experience. Omega trotted beside her, his ears perked, and eyes scanning their surroundings. An hour into the patrol, the group reached a thick section of woodland. The air felt tense, charged with something unspoken. As they moved deeper, Clora sensed a shift, the quiet rustling of leaves that didn't match the wind's direction, the faintest scent of something acrid. Suddenly, with a burst of movement, they were ambushed. Shadowy figures slipped out from behind trees, their faces concealed under twisted masks. Trolls reinforced by dark magic, along with a scattering of shadow creatures, descended upon them with merciless intent. "Shields up!" Clora ordered, stepping into her role immediately, instinctively commanding her squad. The elves responded, forming a defensive line, though she could sense their hesitation. This was a human's order, not their captain's. As the creatures charged, Clora knew she had to prove her worth. Summoning her training, she wielded her staff of light with precision, casting a blinding flash that momentarily threw the trolls off balance. Omega lunged forward, his fierce growl echoing through the forest as he tore into the nearest shadow creature, his spirit-imbued strength proving his place beside her. Clora seized the moment. "Hold the line! Focus on the trolls! They're channeling the darkness into the others!" Her voice cut through the chaos with authority, and the elves responded. Side by side, they drove back the shadow creatures pushing into the clearing. One of the trolls, larger than the rest, barreled toward her, roaring with a primal fury that sent tremors through the ground. Without hesitation, Clora stood her ground, raising her staff. She concentrated, focusing the energy Aeliana had helped her harness, and channeled it into a piercing beam of light. The beam struck the troll squarely, searing through its flesh and leaving it staggered. It bellowed in pain, and Clora, unrelenting, advanced with a deft swing of her staff, signaling her squad to press forward. Together they managed to fend off the remaining creatures, driving them back until the forest was silent once more. As the dust settled, Captain Illaran arrived, having heard the sounds of combat, and come with reinforcements. He surveyed the aftermath, noting the smouldering remains of the trolls and the way his soldiers stood around Clora, their expressions filled with a newfound respect. Captain Illaran approached, his gaze moving from the fallen creatures to Clora. "Reports say you took command, Sergeant. Care to explain?" Clora met his eyes, not a hint of hesitation in her stance. It was a coordinated ambush. The trolls were channeling the darkness. Targeting them was the fastest way to end the attack. The captain's eyes softened slightly. "Efficient. And brave." He addressed the squad. "Looks like our sergeant isn't here to fill a quota. We'll see if she continues to earn her place." The elves exchanged glances, their expressions now tinted with a grudging respect. As the squad prepared to move back to the base, several elves gave Clora appreciative nods, one even clasping her shoulder. Walking back through the forest with Omega at her side, Clora felt the shift in the air. She had taken a step toward belonging, not just as an ally but as a respected warrior. Omega nuzzled her hand, sensing her emotions, and she smiled, feeling for the first time that she was not only welcomed but accepted among Alfheim's warriors.
All right, you've made it this far. That means either you like what you're seeing, or you're lost. Either way, no harm in sticking around, right? Go on, hit that subscribe button, join the team, and while you're at it, hit like, because, let's be honest, you're already invested. And the bell? That's for you if you don't want to miss any of the action. You wouldn't want me to come find you. See you soon, and remember, once you're in, you're family.